Hello guys, BM146 here. Welcome to today's video. So this will be the next part in our series planning in the middle game. If you haven't looked at the first two parts, then go and watch those videos first before you continue. This is part 3 and we've already looked at the general principles, how to use the method to assess a middle game. And then the next part we looked at king safety. In this one we'll continue with the elements, we'll consider development and initiative. We consider those two together because conceptually they're very similar. And as we look at the details, we will understand why. So we'll first take each of them individually, development and initiative. We'll see what they mean and how to assess that imbalance in a position, how to recognize when the imbalance is present. And then we'll see how to convert such positions, how to make use of those imbalances in our favor. And then look at certain example games to drive home the point. Okay, so first, development. Development simply refers to how many pieces you have out. So in the opening, generally we'll bring our pieces out by developing them to nice looking squares where they control the center and then they coordinate nicely within themselves. But then sometimes, because of various reasons, you realize that one side may not focus much on development. And so when one side has completed development and is already in the middle game, the other side will still have some moves to go. And that is when the imbalance of development sets in. Now usually it comes as a result of one side making too many pawn moves in the opening rather than developing the pieces, or the queen coming out too early. If the king comes out too early, what happens is that the queen tends to lose tempo because the opponent can attack it and attack it with developing moves that will win tempo, and so they'll get an advantage in development. It can also come about when one side makes a premature attack. So typically you're supposed to bring out all your pieces first before you launch an attack. But if you launch an attack before bringing out all your pieces, you realize your attack will run out of steam somewhere in the middle, and then all those other pieces that you didn't develop now become a huge disadvantage. So those are some of the commonest ways that a lead in development occurs. Now, as we consider these imbalances, there's one theme that we need to understand, that of static imbalances versus dynamic imbalances. Now, static imbalances are those that are more permanent or long term in a position. For example, if there's some pawn weakness, say a pawn is backward or isolated, for a long time it's going to remain so, it's not going to change with just a few moves. So such weaknesses are termed static because they tend to be permanent or long lasting. But then some imbalances are dynamic in that they can easily disappear if you don't make use of them quickly. And so you need to act urgently whenever they appear. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because as we go through these imbalances, we'll mention some of them that are dynamic. When an imbalance is dynamic, it basically means you need to make use of it quickly or urgently, or else it will disappear because it's a temporary imbalance. And development and initiative both fall under this category. They are both dynamic. So if you have a lead in development and you don't make use of it quickly, the opponent will eventually castle and then your lead in development will just disappear. So how to make use of it is that you have to, once you realize you have that advantage in development, urgently convert it into something static. More often than not, the easiest static imbalance to convert it to is king weakness. So you can create a weakness in your opponent's king. You can also convert it into a weakness in their pawn structure, control over a key file, square or diagonal, or some good or bad minor pieces. But then you need to convert it into something urgently, or else they will develop and then it will disappear. As we look at the example games, you will perhaps grasp that point more. Okay, so that's for development. Our next theme is initiative. Initiative basically has to do with the ability to make threats in a position. Now it's very similar to development in how it looks and how it's converted. But then initiative doesn't require your opponent to be behind in development. You can both be equally developed, but then one side will be calling the shots, so to speak, will have the ability to make threats in position. Now initiative is the reason why in chess you can't just mirror your opponent's moves. For example, if you are as black to decide to just mirror whatever white does, you realize that eventually you lose, because even here you're already just losing a pawn, I think, because you can't take the knight, and then whenever you going to go back, you lose that pawn. So the side which has the move or the ability to make a threat in an equal position holds some advantage, and that's the basis behind initiative, the ability to make threats. So even though development may be equal, if you are the side that is calling the shots, you can make use of that to your advantage. So when you look at a position, look at the possible threats that each side has. And if there's only one side that has any realistic threats to be made, that side has the initiative. And it's also one of these dynamic imbalances that you are mentioning, which means when you have the initiative, you need to convert it into something static quickly, or else it can very quickly disappear. Again, when you look at the example game, you come to understand this more. So we can quickly move over to the games. Now the first two, we'll look at two games that emphasize the point of development. We'll see how one side came to have the advantage in development and how the better side converted that advantage. And in our third game, we'll look at initiative. So our first game is Bobby Fischer himself playing as white against Ruben Fine. Now he played e4, e5, knight f3, standard enough opening position. Fischer played b4, entering into some Evans Gambit lines. After c3 and d4, black responded with bishop a5, which is a fairly standard way of replying. E takes, white castled, and then d takes c3. Now you realize that white has made two moves with this pawn. This bishop has moved 1, 2, 3 times, whereas he has 3 pieces that haven't developed at all. On the other hand, white has already castled and only has a couple of pieces left to develop. So white notices that he has an advantage in development and he tries to make use of it. Again, he needs to be urgent in order to get the most out of it, because if white is to do nothing at all, black can quickly play knight, probably will come to e7 instead, and then castle, and that advantage in development will just disappear. So he's urgent about it. Queen b3, creating a threat against the f7 square, not allowing black to develop normally, so that queen e7 is forced. Knight takes c3. Now he develops with more threats. He's threatening to come here, push the queen away with a simultaneous attack on c7 while maintaining the one on f7. Knight f6. Knight d5 is played. Knight takes, e takes, knight e5. Knight takes, queen takes. Now this file can be a problem, although the bishop controls the square for now. This diagonal will be a problem, as you can see from white's next move, bishop b2. And you see how he has converted the advantage that he had in development into something else. This king is not safe, and that key detail is going to decide the rest of the game. So he's gotten an unsafe king for his opponent out of the opening development advantage that he had. Black responded queen g5, h4, deflecting the queen off of protection of the g7's pawn. Queen takes, bishop takes, rook g8, rook f e1 check. The king is running out of squares. Black is not held by taking. The threat is the same. So the king moved away. and then a very nice finishing move, queen g3. The idea being just to deflect the queen from protecting this diagonal. So if queen takes bishop here, it's checkmate. So realize how Fischer won a very nice game. Let's try and identify the elements that decided the game. White gained the lead in development because black made too many pawn moves, too many moving the same piece twice in the opening, not completing development. And then he quickly took advantage of that and he used it to create a static weakness, being the weak king. He very skillfully exploited that to win the game. Let's see the second example. This was played by Nimzo himself against Alapin as black. And then we'll see how Nimzo also used the same principles in a similar manner. This time was a French exchange variation. Now realize that the queen came out a little early here. I mean, all of this is still playable. It's by no means a mistake to take back with the queen. But then later on, what happens with the queen is what decides the development advantage. White, with every move, is developing pieces and developing them with purpose. Whereas black is still moving pawns, the queen, and all his two pieces are still on their starting squares. Again, he plays a6, trying to stop knight b4, still neglecting development of any of the pieces. Bishop e2 is played. Realizing he has an advantage in development, White wants to make use of it as quickly as possible, threatening just to play bishop f3 to gain tempo on the queen, willingly sacrificing the pawn, realizing that if black takes, White will get even more tempo after bishop f3 queen here, which is exactly what happens in the game. Black took the pawn, another queen move, and then lost more tempo with bishop f3, queen g6, and queen d2. And I realize White is one move away from completing development. Black is at least 4 or 5 moves away. So realizing he has this lead in development, White sets to convert it into something static. Yes. So black played e5. He wants to develop the knight here. So he wants to set the knight away from d4 before he does this. But already he's so much behind in development that this position is actually already completely lost. And White drove that point home with castles long. The point being that once again, the static weakness he has is that this king is very, very unsafe, remaining in the center in a position where White has completed development and is about to add the other rook here. The king is already lost. So he took the knight, bishop took back, knight e6, bishop f6, exclam. These are the kinds of moves that you really want to play. So, of course, there's the obvious mate threat on d8 that forces the queen to take the bishop, which allows him to play rook he1 with tempo. Again, notice that he doesn't really have to sacrifice this bishop. There are many other moves, basically moving the bishop anywhere that retain an advantage. But then he wants all the threats to come with tempo. If it's just to play rook e1 here, black is going to parry that move with a developing move, and it's going to be one move away from castling. Now again, you want to be urgent when you have a dynamic advantage. So you want to prevent black from castling as much as possible. And he realizes that he can achieve it with this move, bishop f6. So after queen takes rook e1, bishop e7. The difference this time is that this file is open, and so it allows the killer blade that follows. This is actually, I think, a mating 5 position. You can try and find the tactics. But it starts with bishop takes c6 check, exclam. Now if the point is to take back, you're going to get, that's just a mating one, queen d8. So he's forced to play king f8, but then he insists, queen d8 check, bishop takes rook e8, checkmate. So again, let's try and isolate the elements that decided the game. It was a French exchange position. The queen came out, but then he wasted too many tempi on pawn and queen moves. This pawn move, not necessary. A6, not necessary. Queen takes g2, very, very unnecessary, and the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back. After bishop f3 here, black is probably lost. And then white wasn't afraid to sacrifice to convert his advantage into a static one, the weak king that had no chance against all of white's forces in the center. So that is how the developments in imbalance works. Now let's take a look at the third game and see how Bariev made use of initiative here. Now this is Kramnik versus Bariev. Kramnik played white, Bariev played black. This again that Bariev won. So Kramnik started with the red team and transposed into a normal QGD position. The opening moves are fairly standard. Now Kramnik went for a very interesting bishop a6 here. Basically trying to exchange this knight for this bishop and also double some of black's pawns. Now there are passive ways to defend, something like queen c8. No, queen c8 doesn't do it. No, it does. Queen c8 will defend it, but it's passive. And so black goes for more active defense with bishop b takes a6, queen takes, and then rook b8 with the idea of playing rook to b6. The pawn on b2 is attacked, so Kramnik played b4. Then rook b6 came. And this is the point where black first seizes the initiative. The position here is fairly equal. White is just one move away from castling and completing his development, so he's not significantly behind in development. Black has the worst pawn structure, but then has the bishop pair to make up for it, and some dynamic threats. So the position is fairly equal, but the only difference is the ability to make threats, the initiative, which lies with black. Rook b8 is the first move that makes a threat, threatens to take on b2, and so white reacts b4. Rook b6, threatening the queen. White reacts, queen a4. Knight h5, threatening to take the bishop and f4, double white's f pawns, isolate white's d pawn. So white reacts, bishop g3. Rook h6, threatening to open up the h file unfavorably for white. And so white castles. White doesn't really want to have to take with the f pawn when the knight takes the bishop. Then knight takes g3, h takes g3, bishop d6. Now white is black, realizing that he has this advantage in initiative, again because it's a dynamic imbalance, is trying to exchange it into something static. And yet again, the easiest static imbalance to exchange these dynamic imbalances to tends to be the king safety. So if you remember from our video on king safety, the king is weak either if it's lost its pawn shield. Here the pawn shield is fairly intact, although this file is open, it's not too relevant currently. But then the other way that the king can be weak is if you have a lot of pieces that are directed towards it. And that's the case here. There are already 3 of these pieces, and the queen is going to join. And you're going to have 4 pieces that are trained onto this king with just a couple of defenders. And that imbalance is going to be problematic. So we'll see how Bariev trades this advantage he has in initiative into a weak king for Kramnik. So white played rook f1, a very useful move. It allows the king to get out via f1 and e2 in case the h file becomes occupied. and then it also threatens to play the move e4 at an opportune time. Barrier continues. Bishop e4. Knight takes, d takes, knight d2, f5. Again, solidifying the pawn on e4. The pawn on e4 prevents the knight from being on f3, taking away yet another defender of the king. The move f5 threatens in some lines to also lift up the second rook to join the attack. And now the queen is ready to join. Queen takes a6. This was perhaps not the right time to go pawn hunting for Kramnik, but he may have thought that the queen would come back via e2 and then defend the king side. Queen g5, queen e2, rook h5, knight c4, queen h6. And now it's quite clear that this king is not safe. So Beriev or Black has traded in that advantage in initiative that he got with this, that the move should be b8 to b6 for an unsafe king for white. And this imbalance is going to win him the king. White had to lash out with f4. The h file is now a big problem. There's nowhere for the king to run to. This position actually is already lost, I think. There isn't any good way to defend the king. After f4, white loses very nicely. And then Barrier finds all the tactics. First, e takes, queen takes, forgive my mouse, queen takes, and then a very nice move, bishop takes g3. The idea is that after the sacrifice, it's impossible for white to avoid the f5 getting opened. And once this rook also joins the action, the king becomes indefensible. So the line goes bishop takes g3, queen takes g3, and then f4. There you have the point. If the pawn is to take, you can check first or just take on f4 with the rook. But in either way, the f5 becomes opened, and so the king has nowhere to go after rook h1 check. And the queen can't take because of obvious reasons. And the queen just moves away like it did. Then you are still going to take on e3, then open the f5 with the same threat of mating on h1. So with the f5 opened, the king simply cannot be defended, and so the queen had to sacrifice itself for the rook. And the endgame that followed, although it took some time, will always be within for black. So Barrier took some time to find the right setup to finish it off, but then he eventually found it. With this move, rook takes d5, the point being that after rook takes back, there's a check here that wins back the rook, and the rest is a matter of technique. So again, our point is to understand how he made use of the imbalance of initiative, which started all the way here on move 11. Fairly equal position, the only difference being the ability to create threats. And Black started and made use of this ability until he had created a static weakness, king safety, that he could play against. So that is how it goes. So development and initiative function very similarly. We'll go over the principles again. One side can be down in development if they move too many pawns in the opening, they bring out their queen too early. If they start a premature attack before completing their development. And development and initiative are dynamic imbalances. So you want to, as quickly as possible, transform them into something static, being a weakness in pawn structure, weakness in king safety, or control of some important file diagonal, or weak pieces. Now, initiative is just the ability to make threats in a position. It's also a dynamic imbalance. So whenever you have an imbalance in any of these two elements, you want to quickly make use of it, transform it into something static. like these guys just did. Okay, so thank you very much for tuning in to today's video. We'll continue with the elements. I think the next one that we'll take will be space. And we'll see the principles that apply, the general rules, and then how to apply them in certain specific positions when you have more space, when you have less space, etc. Once again, thank you very much. Happy chessing. See you later.